Doesn't everyone love saving the best till last? This is the 991 Speedster. It's the very last car that Porsche built as part of the 991 series, which is basically every 911 for the last 7 or 8 years. Today, we're going to show you around the 991 Speedster. We're going to discuss its importance. We're going to talk about the performance, the design, discuss some of the different specs you can get, where it sits in the market, and ultimately decide, have Porsche just finished on a high, or have they saved the best till last? Okay, so a brief history on the Speedster. So the name actually harks back to the 356 Speedster, which was built back in 1948. And to commemorate that car, Porsche actually built 1,948 of these. Since then, we've had the 993 Speedster, the 997 Speedster, quite a few others, but none have been quite like this, the 991 Speedster. That is because this car has been built by the Porsche Motorsport division. They're responsible for building all the GT cars, so the GT3, the GT3 RS, GT2 RS, and the 911R. But this is the first convertible, and it's without a doubt the most extreme open-top 911 that Porsche have ever built. And being the only convertible of the GT range makes it a very special car, so there's no surprise it's been in huge demand. Okay, so let's walk you around the exterior of the car. So the whole chassis is actually initially derived from the GT3. There are a few notable things on here. So the bonnet and the front wings are actually from the 911R. And they're made totally of carbon fiber. It's actually carbon fiber reinforced plastic, you might be able to see. But both that and the front wings are from the 911R. As with most 911s, you get your little luggage compartment in the front. So around here, so you've got the 20-inch, the same alloys as the GT3. This customer has painted them in the silver color. Carbon ceramic brakes, they come standard on the Speedster with the yellow calipers. This car's got carbon fiber mirrors, that is an option. But one of the characteristics of the Speedster is having this much shorter windscreen. So it's shorter than other 911s. You get much smaller side windows as well. You'll notice the decal here, which goes across the side of the car. A lot of Speedsters you'll see that come with the chipping, the anti-chipping film in black, which is a bit of a throwback to some of the earlier Speedsters. It's probably a good time to tell you about the Heritage Design Pack as well. This is a £15,000 option, which basically gives you livery all over the car, which again is a throwback to the earlier Speedsters. It's become actually a very desirable option and adds some really serious value to the car. A lot of people, it's not to everyone's taste. A lot of people actually deleted the decals and just kept the other touches, which basically give you lots of gold touches throughout. So you get gold Speedster badging here. You get cognac seats inside with gold plaques and gold badging on the rear. So it is a thing that's become very desirable, especially overseas. On the rear end, some of you Porsche enthusiasts might notice the whole rear end is exactly the same as it is on the GT3 Touring. But the rear spoiler and the rear wings are actually from the Carrera S cab. But undoubtedly the showpiece of the Speedster is this whole massive rear lid, which is made of carbon fiber. In fact, it's the biggest carbon fiber panel that Porsche have ever created for any model. If you look closely, you'll notice these two sort of hatches. Underneath those, you've got roll bars that pop out in case the car overturns. Obviously a good safety feature. It's very cool rear brake light. And now I want to show you exactly how the roof system works. Okay, so how does the roof system work on the 991 Speedster? Porsche actually originally thought about having no roof at all, which is a bit of a recent trend with the likes of the Ferrari Monza, the McLaren Elva. You also had the Aston Martin Zagato Speedster, none of which had a roof, but all cost in the region of over £1 million. So Porsche wanted this car to be used and driven and not have to worry about the impracticality of rain. So they have built a roof, and this is how it works. To put the roof up, yeah, so you'll be in the car, flick this little button down here, which opens the rear boot lid. You then bring it out here manually. It's quite light because it's all made of carbon fiber. And then you bring up the fabric roof here, which then, with a little bit of effort, sits there. And you go back to here with the rear boot lid, put that back into place. Put these little flicks back down, which go in very nicely and easily. And then the final bit is you have to get back in the car and press the button again, which completes the movement. Of course, this is a Speedster, so pretty much all the time you're going to want to drive with the roof down. Okay, so onto the interior. If you're used to driving 911s, this is still a fairly familiar place to be. Obviously this is a GT car, so it is a two-seater, but you'll notice this has come with the adaptive sport seats. Most of the other Speedsters that I've come across have got the bucket seats, but I think these sport seats are actually a good option. You know, this is a driver-focused enthusiast car, yes, but it's not a track-focused car. So the bucket seats, I don't think are a necessity. You know, this is a car to be enjoyed on the open road. You want to feel comfortable, and the comfort seats are definitely going to appeal to some people. So on the rest of the interior, you can see that this car's been specced with the deviating gold stitching throughout. So you've got it on the steering wheel, got it all over the dashboard, through the center here, and on the seats and the headrests. So that's a bit of a nod to the Heritage Design Pack, which has a gold theme throughout, especially with more gold plaques. You'll notice here the trim, he's gone with GT silver to match the exterior. You can get the more modern carbon fiber interior or black piano wood, but the GT silver definitely works for this car. There's lots of tech, as you'd expect for the latest of the 991 series. All your phone, media, navigation, all works seamlessly. This car's actually got the option of suspension lift. I have noticed quite a few Speedsters have been spec'd without that. I think it's because it's a more retro car, and obviously the old Speedsters didn't have it. So I don't think it's a necessity, but a nice practical option to have. But another little secret practical thing that the Speedster has is these cubby holes back here behind the seats where you can store a bit of extra luggage. So with a chassis derived from the GT3 and some elements of the 911R, you would expect the Speedster to drive like a dream. So I'm only going to take it for a brief drive. It's wet and windy today. We're in the middle of winter in the UK, so I'm not going to be able to get the full experience of it, but I will just talk you through some of the important things. So probably the most important thing about the car is the fact it comes with a manual gearbox. So there is no PDK option for this car, just the 6-speed manual gearbox. So instantly you know the Porsche built this car for driver enjoyment, driver engagement, and they're going for that slightly more retro experience based on emotive rather than sort of outright speed and performance. And that is really what we want from this car. So we've got the same 4-litre flat 6 engine from the GT3, but Porsche have managed to squeeze 10 brake horsepower more for the Speedster, which takes it to over 500 brake horsepower. In order to do that, Porsche have introduced high pressure fuel injectors and individual throttle valves, but in order to make the car environmentally friendly and to comply with the EU emission laws, they have also introduced 2 particular filters. This is supposedly meant to dull down the exhaust note a little bit, but I think this thing still sounds exceptionally good. exhaust note in full force with the top down, the sun in your face. You know, Porsche have made this car to appeal to people that want to drive this thing on the road and really enjoy it. This isn't a track focused car. Yes, it has the same suspension as the GT3, but the setup is a little softer. You know, there's fewer compromises. It's a more forgiving car to drive, and it's really nice to drive in low speeds. So you could easily use this thing every day. And the other thing is you can get this thing up to 9,000 RPM, so it is super fun at the limit as well. All the time driving this car, it just feels so perfectly balanced. The gear changes are just short and snappy, the clutch feels light, the steering feels so precise. You've got rear axle steering as standard. You know, you've got the auto blip feature for downshifting, making it a safer car to drive and just a more pleasurable driving experience. I really can't underestimate how sublime this car is to drive. So how much do these Speedsters cost and where do they sit in the market today? So the base price of the car in the UK before any options are added is £211,000, there or thereabouts. This example is a very high spec car. It's got about £20,000 worth of options. As I said previously, you can also spec the Heritage Design Pack, which adds another £15,000. So you could get a car that lists close to £250,000. Your first thought might be that sounds very expensive. You know, it's a good 100 grand more than a GT3. But then you have to remember that Porsche, they have a knack for undervaluing their cars, especially their GT products, which pretty much always end up selling for premiums over list price. That's one of the reasons why there's such a frenzy when a new GT car gets announced, because everyone wants to be on the list for an allocation. I remember when the Speedster was first announced, it was just over a year ago. Lots of people were getting very excited about it. I remember speaking to some of my clients. Some of them were calling around the Porsche dealers trying to get their name down for a Speedster, and they were told you have to buy a Cayenne and a Panamera, maybe even a Boxster, just to stand a chance. People were actually willing to do that, to buy 2 or 3 cars they didn't even want, just to get one of these Speedsters. I think first deliveries, at least in the UK, started a few months ago, and they've been selling like hotcakes on the second-hand market for big premiums too. I think initially people were talking around the £100,000 over list. Obviously the very first cars do tend to get a higher premium. I think naturally they've now settled back down a little bit, but they're still very, very hard to get hold of. Something that's also been made apparent was there's been really big demand for the Heritage Design Pack. You know, these cars have been going for even stronger premiums. Even though they're not to everyone's taste, you know, there's been stronger demand fueled by the Asian markets. In particular, the likes of Thailand and Hong Kong. You know, there was a real shortage of Heritage Pack cars that went out there. So I know a lot of the UK cars that have sold for big money have ended up being exported. That's only going to help with residual values when it comes to cars in this country, just because there will be less Speedsters around. I know some people will still think, sort of out of principle, I'm not paying £70,000, £80,000 over the list price, but you have to compare the price to what else is on the market. Firstly, there's no other convertible Porsche that's like the Speedster. You know, you have the Turbo S cab, which is faster, but completely different character. You have the 718 Spider, which has links to the Porsche Motorsport division, but they does not compare. So you have to end up looking into sort of hypercar territory with the Carrera GT, the 918 Spider, to get something that's better than this. Outside of the Porsche brand, you could probably compare it to something like the 488 Pista Spider. Good spec example of one of those is listing close to 400 grand. And then add a premium on top of that. You could look at the 720S Spider. You know, that's not even a special edition. You know, good spec cars list close to 300 grand, you know, and they're just not going to hold their value very well. My point is the Speedster is a very special car. You know, they don't come around very often. It's a limited numbered car. You know, they normally tend to come out right at the end of the line as a sort of run out special. Will we see a 992 Speedster? Yes, possibly, but it's going to be another 7 or 8 years until the 992 production comes to an end. But then you've got to think that far in the future, are there still going to be naturally aspirated engines? Are there still going to be manual gearboxes? You know, this is an industry that's moving very quickly towards hybrid and electric vehicles, so it's very unlikely it's going to be the same sort of thing. So long term, we could look back on this car as one of the last true driver's cars. You know, I think alongside the 911R, it will go down as one of the Porsche's all-time great 911s, and what a way to sign off on the 991 series. So there you have it, that is the 991 Speedster, a beautiful example. I'm sure we're going to get plenty more in over the course of the year. That's our first video of the decade that we've done. We've got plenty more to come, so please stay tuned, subscribe, and we'll see you again next time.